All right. Hello, friends. We are here with our first ever caster class. It's kind of a way to help us all learn, grow, improve, polish our chops. The whole 9 yards. I do have Chef Billy in here on the call with me. You there, Chef? Billy?
There.
There you are. Oh, here, let's get your volume turned up a little bit.
Yeah, I'm a little softer than normal.
Billy's been a little bit under the weather. How you feeling today?
Uh, yeah, I'm still feeling dead, but I'm feeling better. Got a big weight off my shoulders getting my negative test today, so
Yeah, working in a school, that had to be very nerve-wracking.
yes, sir. Yes, sir. But I've really been looking forward to this, so
Yeah,
it's gonna be a fun time.
this is gonna be a pretty chill one. We're just kind of gonna do some introduction, kind of just get in the rhythm here a little bit. First day of school, class is starting up. Everybody's kind of get back in the rhythm of things. I mean, that's pretty much what we're about here today. Um, if you go look on the Discord, there is a weekly syllabus, which I saw you reacted to, so I know you've seen it.
Mm-hmm.
Also available for anybody at home. Feel free to join the Discord. There's a link right there for you.
You know, it's funny. We were talking about this before I got sick, and this is kind of the conversation we were having with Ocean. And I said, what are the big five things that you think about? And I'm like, hey,
Yeah, no, I thought it was a
I
good starting
noticed.
point because it got me
Yeah,
analyzing what I thought was the top five most important aspects of Overwatch casting. So
same.
I kind of did my own version of it, and I mean, this is just how I was feeling today. The past couple days, this could absolutely change as time goes on, but I feel like this is a pretty solid place to start.
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe in the
Like,
future I'll type these up and we could show them on stream or whatnot, but
yeah.
people at home are welcome to go join the Discord, and you can kind of get a recap of what we were talking about here today. I would also, eventually we'll do VOD reviews or real reviews. We can do practice casts. There's a lot we can do with this. But I figured it was just a good, consistent way to, you know, keep the chops up, keep warm.
Keep the ladder down for those that are trying to get into it too. You
Yeah,
and
for
I,
sure.
we've talked about that. How Big Hungry Phil, that was his big thing, was keeping the ladder down for people to climb up, so that they can get into this like we did. I mean, we went from zero to hero in a pretty rapid space because we grinded so hard. And I mean, that's people ask me a lot on Twitter and on Discord, when they're trying to join the stream team, or they see me on Twitter and they say, how do I get into it? I say, just start doing it.
Yeah,
Just get in full, both feet, take the plunge, you know, go watch an Overwatch cast that's already happened, and turn the volume down and cast it how you would cast it. And that's a great way to get started.
oh yeah, casting the VODs is very good. That's kind of what prompted this was the kind of practice cast with Paul. I was like, hey, we should do this and turn this into a weekly thing.
Mm-hmm.
I had those clean feeds of my YouTube, which I need to make more of. Probably make some more this week, so that we could do a practice cast next week. We're just different ways that we can keep on our toes, keep the conversation going, keep those gears a grinding.
I tell you, those clean feeds that you had, because I was so you know how nervous I was before I got into Elo Hell. I'm like, how the hell am I going to cast to a clean feed? I've never done this before. Once you go clean feed, you never go back. It's
It is a lot.
so
It is a lot simpler than doing your own observing and trying to pick out what you think the audience is looking at or should look at. It just makes everything feel a lot more cohesive. That's for
it
sure.
really does. It just feels more professional. Also, I think that the environment that you're surrounded by when you're doing these casts, especially Elo Hell, Monkey Bubble, Open Division, where you're at contenders trials, it's just the professionalism of the people around you. I mean, we do this for nothing really. And I mean, just the professional nature of what we're doing, I guess, is the biggest thing that I love so much about working with Elo Hell and working with Monkey Bubble and Reflash. Just anybody that's out there listening, this is really what you've got to do is you just got to get into it. You got to go for your dreams and take your shot, shoot your shot, and just go full bore into it. And that's what Bull Skunk and I did. So
It's that simple and yet that difficult all at the same time.
don't talk to us about our crippling anxiety when we're trying to reach out to these big people.
It's it's definitely something that comes easier over time.
Yeah, yeah, I agree with that.
Let's see. Well, I suppose we should just start off with these. Well, my top five aspects of Overwatch casting. It may not be everybody's top five. I've certainly not been doing this as long as some of our mentors and stuff. So there are people who are way more proficient than I at these things, which is part of why I'm doing it. I think it'll help us learn as well as pass down that ladder, like you're saying.
Yeah, I mean these are exactly what we were talking about the other day. So I mean, I think this is a perfect starting point. I think if the people out there that are listening or that will listen to this, get these five, I guess what you call core strategies, core aspects. Um,
Yeah, core aspects. I like that.
I I think that you'll have a nice foundation to grow off of for sure.
And coincidentally enough, our first one and the most important one is definitely storytelling, and the elements that goes into good storytelling. And I say coincidentally enough is because the first thing I talk about is going from the general to the specific, which is kind of what I'm about to do now. So our five most important aspects: storytelling, personality, speaking with intent, which I will elaborate on in a bit, synergy, which is just synergy between the co-casters and the broadcast as a whole. So, I mean, this comes down to synergy with your observers, with what you're seeing on screen versus the story you're telling, and keeping it all concise and reinforcing the original point, reinforcing the original elements of the story. And then just knowledge. And it's not just game knowledge, but team knowledge. So,
Yeah, that's solid.
starting with storytelling, I kind of touched on going from general to specific, and this is something we've heard from a couple of the pros that have done VOD reviews with us on a number of occasions, and I think the general idea there is you give the broad aspects and then break it down to all the way to why are the specific micro plays and interactions so important to the overall story, and also how those things play out. So you can that could go to meta if you're talking about the general aspects of a meta and what you might see, and then narrow it down to an important character, to cooldown usage, and then how this particular player is utilizing that cooldown usage to affect the overall arc of the series, of the story.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that is your job as a caster first and foremost. Is what story are you putting out there? Why? That's the thing that Labosco told me in our joint uh, VOD review. He told me I am the master of why.
Yes, indeed.
As a color caster, your job as a color caster is to be the master of why. You have to explain why things are happening or why things are going to happen. Why did they invest said ultimate? Why did they, wait to get certain cooldowns out? Why did they do this? Why did they do that? Or why are they going to do it?
Yeah, why something's important.
Why is something
Even
important?
if what's up, Wolf? Thanks for stopping by, man. Yeah, we're doing a little caster class today, so this is gonna be a new episodic weekly thing every Monday. Um, but even back to the why conversation. If you're talking, if you have 12 ults online, it's going to be an ult extravaganza coming into the next fight. Why are certain ults important? Spacey, what's up, man? We're doing fantastic. Hi,
Hey,
it's
Jack.
early evening for us Americans. It's 6:15 my time.
Yeah.
So I mean, well, it's early evening. We're doing well. I hope you're having a good day or had a good day, as your day has pretty much concluded.
Oh,
Staying
he's
up
a
late
young
to hang out
lad.
with us.
He's a young lad. He only needs 4 hours of sleep a day, according to him. Young buck.
Yeah, we're all a bunch of real gamers, bunch of degens.
Yes. Yes.
Except for Wolf, that guy actually has some discipline. It's amazing. It's amazing.
Yeah. It's true that.
Me, I like staying up late and watching APAC games and playing Overwatch and stuff.
Back to storytelling though. Like you said, color casting. It's painting in. It's filling in the colors that the play-by-play has set out for you. And that leads into synergy, but we'll get down to that one later. But if you have good synergy with your play-by-play or vice versa, you can throw a line out there and the color should be able to pick up on it and run with it for a good 15, 30, 45 seconds, depending on how much time you have.
Well,
Uh, and re-
let's not get ahead of ourselves too much because
uh-huh.
that actually ties back into I mean, these all tie in together,
Yep.
but the way that applies to the storytelling is reinforcing that point. So I mean, you have the basic elements of any story, which I've kind of retooled the verbiage to fit an Overwatch story. So I would say those are introduction. I mean, just as plain as simple as it sounds, though you can elaborate and add your own flair with your own personality, as we'll get into. Be that more on the analytical side of things, or just building up the hype. Stakes. So what is it? Stakes for both of these teams. What what is the buildup coming in? And this could be something as simple as a new player and seeing how this will affect the roster. Could be continuing, a big undefeated run, searching for a first win. There's a lot of stakes that could be implemented to give it more weight, to give the match some meaning. And this is super important. I mean, this kind of goes back into your territory of why. I mean, it's
Hmm.
why are they here? Why what are they fighting for? And why is it important to them?
Yep. Agreed.
I think this feeds into character or characters, kind of depending on how you look at it, because I think this could come down to the character of the team itself. It's not necessarily an individual thing, though that can be a part of it as well. Certainly, if you're talking about star players, whether they're going to shine, why they shine, and if they could be shut down, how. So that's kind of setting the players themselves. So you have introduction and stakes are kind of, I think, more about the tournament, what's on the line coming into the tournament, and what it could mean. Be it bragging rights, prize pool, moving on to a better tournament. Good rapport, stonks going up, all those things. Uh, Stakes kind of narrows it down a little bit to where you're talking about what really matters in that, and then the characters are the players, the personalities behind it, and how they approach these stakes in this tournament. This brings you to your arc. There should always be an improving or a regressing going on throughout the entire story. I mean, or if it's a neck and neck, like even that is its own character arc, is its own story arc rather. Uh, Typically more exciting ones, wouldn't you say? If you're talking about building
Yeah.
an arc and you have a absolute back and forth going to a map 5.
Yeah. I think that you and I talk about this a lot. We worked on this a lot as I do ourselves. Having the peaks and value, you can't always be at a positive 9,000 in your hype. You have to allow the story to breathe. You have to allow the game to breathe, and you have to allow each other to breathe too. So you're going to have peaks and valleys. So this arc that we're speaking of You build the hype, you get to a climax moment, or as you get to a high point, and then you go down, and you bring the hype down, and then you keep building that arc, and it should be a steady progression uh, throughout the storytelling process. So,
Well,
if
absolutely. And I mean, I think
yeah,
it's a really good point because your energy needs to reflect where you are in that arc. Uh,
it's your personal investment into the story.
well, and with that, I mean, just as an example, your energy on map 1 should not be the same as your energy in map 4.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's more on the line. Things have built, which you should have established throughout those maps, by putting out good stakes, by reminding people of the stakes as the match goes on, and as those stakes kind of mold a little bit and organically move a little bit. Um, which brings to the climax of the story. Like that is the turning point. That is the big fight. It's not always the last fight though. Sometimes it's the final fight. I mean, if you're at you know round 5 on or map 5 on control, round 3, and it's 99-99, like that, your climax has waited till the very last possible engagement, to where that, I mean, it all comes down to that last fight. That is the climax of the entire series, and your emotions and speed and all of that should reflect it accordingly.
Yeah, you should be out of your chair at that point, even if it's not a very
Well,
exciting fight. I mean, you should be either on the edge of your chair. Your voice should be, much higher pitched. If you're like me, when I get excited, my voice goes up.
and I
Uh,
think there's a little bit of individual personality that goes into that, but yes,
mm,
those are certainly examples of, yeah, coming to the peak of the hype.
yep.
And yeah, we're very, we ride the emotional side of the cast a lot. Um, and I mean, I think it's a good thing. I mean, that's part of our style, is letting that passion come through, and just the sheer enjoyment for how the match unfolds and the plays that we're seeing happen. And then, of course, resolution. You've got to be able to bring it down, and whether that's after the entire series altogether, whether it's, I mean, a lot of times the 2 minute warning is a big one. That's something that Boop talks about a lot. Booposaurus has been very helpful in teaching us the ways of the cast. He's highly recommend looking him up if you haven't already. He is as old school as it gets as far as Overwatch casting. Kind of helps set the bar for what Contenders is supposed to look like, as far as I'm concerned.
Yep. Major stonks there. Major stonks on Boop.
But
The
that's
man knows his stuff.
yeah, that's something. The 2 minute warning is something he talks about a lot. And a lot of times that's your best opportunity as a fight win. I mean, depends on, the 2 minute warning is so important because of your time to build up a round of ultimates. But yeah, if you come into a fight, the 2 minute warning with a ton of ultimates, and the defenders or the opposition doesn't have as much to work with, especially if it's key important ultimates, that's your best chance at a fight win. That is most likely the climax of that map at the very least. And then from there, it's kind of a foregone conclusion. Now, sure, there are miraculous turnarounds, and that can be very exciting and unexpected, but that should be established with your stakes. And so your resolution isn't always your final fight, or isn't always after the final fight. It's after the climax of that map or even that series, to where you're like, well, I mean, there's pretty much no way blue team can win it from here. They're out of ultimates. They spent everything in the last fight. This is going to be an incredible feat for blue team to win this last fight and take it home. The odds are completely stacked against them now, and 9 times out of 10, red team is going to win in that scenario. Well, what just happened?
I don't know.
We had some. I think we had a cheer come through. It's not showing. Let me go check. Let me go check my. I just got a notification of something. I want to make sure I acknowledge it because it's not showing up in my Streamlabs. There.
Streamlabs doing Streamlab things.
Yeah, yeah. Well, this I'm talking about, like, the actual notification itself.
Yeah.
No, it's not showing up in my activity feed either. Something beeped. Ah, Spacey hosted. That's what it was. Okay, very good, very good. Thank you. I appreciate it, Spacey.
Thanks, Spacey.
Yeah, for some reason it's not showing up in my activity feed here. I really appreciate it. All right. So just a quick review on storytelling, general to specific on your information. Make sure you hit proper traditional storytelling elements. Um, yeah, I'm sure your English teacher probably explained it better than I did, but in trying to mold it to Overwatch, or literature teacher or whatever it is across the world. Um, Introduction, stakes, the characters and the teams and the individuals that are involved. Try to put as much personality into the players as you can. Give the characters nice 3 dimensions. It's not try to go beyond. Well, they're a great hit scan player. I mean, and you don't always have a ton of information at your disposal, but do your best to create individuals that are part of the story. The arc of it should always be moving forward. Should always be moving somewhere. It's somebody is gaining an edge. Somebody is riding the momentum. Somebody is taking the lead, and try to ride that in the story. This will lead to your climax. This should be the hypest moment of the whole series. And I'm not talking about just for a map, but the climax of the whole series, where it really rubber meets the road kind of moment. You know, and then your resolution. You got to bring the audience back down, uh, reestablish why the stakes were important and what had been accomplished, and take it home from there. All right,
Couldn't have
so
said it better myself.
so this brings us to an element we started to touch on, and our second talking point for the class, which would be personality. And I think the first and foremost, what I have written down in the syllabus here is what unique aspects do you bring to the cast. This is different for everybody, and it's finding your style is actually pretty tough. It's one of the it's ambiguous isn't the right word. It's one of the more abstract constructs. I think is the word I was going for to how to do a cast. But I don't know. You got any follow up? I mean, it's something innate, but yet you still have to strive for it and actively search for your style at the same time. So it is kind of a difficult concept to nail down, to lock down.
I mean, if you listen to us talking right now, this is our normal conversational tone. I have a caster voice. Um, it is a persona that I put on when I'm in my cast, but it is just a little bit variation of my everyday self. Um, how did I find mine? Just trial and error. I mean, I tried being super goofy. I was actually going down memory road this morning. There's a thread in one of my on my Twitter, and it was origin stories. I kept seeing people's origin stories popped up, so I brought up. I went trying to find my very first cast with basic, where every pun was a culinary pun. Like that was a spicy self-destruct,
Right, right. Really
and
leaning into the chef aspect.
really leaning into it. It was so cringe. It
Hey,
was so cringe.
you gotta
But
put
I
yourself
tried.
out there.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, that's where it started. And it didn't work, but it got my personality out there, and that's you've told me this many times. Everybody has told me this many times. I'm the reason. It's my personality that people listen to me cast. Um, and I mean, this is just me. You know me off camera, away from all the lights and everything. I'm the same person. Uh,
Right.
Maybe a little bit more foul mouth, um,
But it's
but it's
really the
me.
reason why people enjoy any caster. I mean,
Yeah.
it's their unique personality that's what's going to set you apart from the other casters out there when looking for gigs, when trying to figure out where you fit the best. Finding your style is so key in that. And I mean, it's still something I'm working on. I mean, it's still part of it is just be yourself, forehead.
It's so true.
But there's still some active aspects that you can
Uh-huh.
use to enhance that and really strengthen it. And Spacey, I have no idea what happened there. I'm sorry. Streamlabs is the maid is strict. I mean, that
Wow.
maid is strict. No, no, no.
Spacey, the same thing. Spacey, the same thing happened to Ocean. They all thought Ocean was a girl. when he first started casting with CGL. I thought Ocean was a girl when I first cast the first time I cast with him because his voice was super high. And yeah, puberty hit him too. And yeah, fortunately, Jeff and I are old enough that we didn't have to worry about puberty when we started casting.
This is true.
This is true.
And I was catching up because it actually stayed on screen. So even though it deleted itself from chat proper, it stayed on screen. So I was catching up on all that.
I just read it too.
Yeah.
I'm in mod mode.
I started on Pugs, and where it was like okay to be a disaster. It wasn't. I had no clue what I was doing. I was just doing my best to emulate what I had seen in owl broadcasts and such. So it was. Oh, I should get that because there's the 3 keys to mastering, and it's imitate. What is it? Imitate, polish, innovate.
Yes.
I feel like I'm missing the middle word. I don't think it's polish. It's something like that though. Where it's
Right.
the very first step of learning or mastering any new skill. It doesn't matter if it's cooking, painting, casting, gaming, is you try to imitate the masters. You try to imitate the people that are better than you. Let me just take into an Overwatch context, whether it's for me back in the day was watching Soon VODs and trying to do what Soon did on Tracer. Just like without really understanding why, and kind of figuring out the why. Like as you do it, you're like, oh, that's why he's doing that. Like once you do it a couple times, you're like, okay, and so then you can start polishing that and start kind of making it your own. And once you get to that point, you can innovate and start really creating your own techniques and your own methods, fully understanding the reasoning behind it all. So I heard that a long time ago, and it applies to everything.
Yeah, I mean that was me. I literally did not know I was going to be a caster until I was a caster. And people ask me how did I get started, and I may have said it once before, but tier 1, tier 2 were not being casted in CGL very much, much to my chagrin because I thought we had a lot to bring to the table. And I was basically told by Lucy Willis and Skate and Headrammer and everybody else, well, if you don't like it, come join us. So I did. And I bitched enough about not getting coverage, and I started covering it myself. And, I was a train wreck for a while. It was just bad. I went back and watched one of my earliest ones that I could find on the CGL YouTube. Oh, God.
It's hard.
Explicit throws to me, and I'm just like la 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 la.
So Billy, what'd you think of that last series? What?
Nope. I mean, there were sometimes I just wouldn't answer because I had no idea what to say.
Oh, I'm supposed to be talking now. Shit.
Shit.
Sorry. This is a class. We should probably keep our own explicit as low.
Oh,
speaking of,
yes. Shoot.
Before we get any further, Disro coming through with a Twitch Prime, 5 months and all 3 months in a row. Thank you so much.
Disro,
I really appreciate the support. And with
so
the host. And coming through with the host. Gotta love it. Thank you.
Love you guys. Yeah. I guess there's a line from a mid 90s sci-fi show that was really ahead of its time, called Babylon 5. And it was based out. The production was based out of Dallas.
Yeah.
And it was competing with TNG. And there was a character in it called Lorien, and his line to Commander, whatever his name was, was, "Who are you?" And then he said, "Who are you?" And it was the difference in the emphasis. Who are you versus who are you? And that really resonated with me way back then, before a lot of you guys were alive. But yeah, it still sticks with me today. Is I know who I am, at least as far as a personality. I know what I bring. I have moments where I'm chaotic neutral, as Airborne likes to say. When I get so upset or frustrated with what I'm seeing on screen that I may call a group of Masters players bronzes.
I was there for that.
You were there for that.
I was there for that.
But yeah, that is that's one of my favorite moments, by the way. I
And
still love
I've
that.
always leaned into more of the lawful good side. Like
I know
that's
you do.
uh well, and early days, I was casting with Ocean a lot, who is pretty much like just straight chaotic evil. As far as as far as casting personality, he's straight chaotic evil. And those of you who've been around the channel for a bit, maybe some of the podcasts, you might have heard me talk about the story where I was at the April 2019 Dallas homestand, the very first one, and everybody was there. I'm talking the entire lineup was there, as far as production and casting talent. I got to shake Nate Nanzer's hand. I mean, it was like everybody was there, and got an interesting conversation. Long story short, I ended up hanging out with the casters for most of the weekend. A friend of mine does PR for the fuel. So, like, we were staying in the hotel where all the players and everybody were staying at. We got there the Friday night. Matches didn't start till Saturday. So, we were, like, hanging out with them all Friday night. And got into a conversation. I mean, sitting around with a bunch of the casters, just all at a big table on the patio of this bar out in Allen, Texas. And talking about the balance between the personalities and how every caster not only has a very D&D style alignment, and it was fun to just go around and kind of figure out what everybody's alignment was, but that they're almost perfectly paired with somebody of the opposite alignment. And the most obvious example and the easiest one to nail down was Monty and Doa. Monty is absolutely chaotic evil, Doa absolutely lawful good. And
Uh-huh.
it's, I mean, that's a pretty, and there's more, it gets a little more gray area as you move through the pairings. But that goes to a little bit of synergy, which we'll touch on later, but has a lot to do with their personalities. And in that example, it's as simple as Doa criticizing a team, and then I'm sorry, other way around. Monty criticizing a team, and then Doa coming in with the team did do this pretty well, or the opposition was really strong with this aspect. It made life very difficult on Team B. So it was bringing in the mistakes and then bringing in the things that either team did well, and kind of having this story built around it. But it works. It works to build synergy within your casters. Moving on with personality, I think there's two extremes, not just as far as alignment, as far as what D&D would call it, but also just style, and where you have your very analytical style and your more emotionally driven style, and that's the two extreme archetypes. There's definitely a lot of middle ground. I'd like to think I'm kind of, what would you say, 65-35 emotional to analytical.
Uh-uh. Uh-uh.
Because I really enjoy the passion of it. I really enjoy the heartbreak and the victory, and all of everything in between. To me, it's very exciting, and it makes it very fun to watch. But finding your own personality is important, and then that there are fans who respond to all kinds of styles. I mean, the analytical is typically a little bit more, what would you say, reserved as far as the emotional hype goes, but brings more intellectual breakdown on micro plays, on composition choices. And again, not to say that there's not bleed over, not to say that an analytical caster isn't going to have any emotion to his casting, nor should he try to stifle that. Or
I think
they.
Ocean. I think Ocean is the best example of that. He is so emotionally invested in the cast, but man, he has got the biggest brain on him as far as analysis and those micro plays and the micro metas and the micro matchups that he just seems to have his finger on the pulse of no matter what. Even before, I mean, it's uncanny. He's almost like the Nostradamus of Overwatch. I mean, there's been times where he said, well, this person's going to retire, this person's going to get traded, or this person's going to do this.
Right.
And weeks later, it happens.
Well, I mean, even on a professional level, I mean, I'm thinking like Wolf and Achilleos versus, Uber and Mr. X.
I think that Wolf and Achilleos are the nerdy analytical types.
Absolutely, they are.
But I mean, that isn't to say that Achilleos can't take it up to a hype level of 9,000.
Oh no, it doesn't mean that their passion for the game is any less. It's why I use them as an example.
Yeah.
I mean, when watching like Shanghai just dismantle somebody. Oh, what match was that? Was that the Charge? I don't know, but Wolf was just like in hog heaven. Wolf was just giddy. I mean, he was absolutely it's just elated with the level of play and seeing Shanghai, I mean, step it up yet another notch and show off just this expert masterclass of Overwatch. Just a performance for the ages. And he was giddy about, I mean, you could see just the giddiness to it. And even the same thing in like disappointment in Chengdu, and this was actually part of what made the Chengdu cast so amazing. The Chengdu reverse sweep. Oh, what match was that? Was that against Nixel?
Was it Nixel?
I gotta go look it up. It's one of my favorite casts I've seen in a long time. Excuse me. Because they are ragging on Chengdu. And they've got backstory going into it. They've set the stakes. They've gone through the whole story arc. And by the end of map 2, Chengdu's down 0-2, hence the reverse sweep. And
they had written them off.
They had not just written them off. They were like, this whole organization needs work. Like it was the level of disappointment was insane. I've got to figure out what. Let me see if I can find what match this is because it's just too good. But then as the reverse sweep happens, you're like witnessing the rebirth of Chengdu, which they've been on a run ever since, and they talk about this, and it's one of the most amazing changes. It's one of the most amazing arcs I've ever seen in an Overwatch series, and the way that Wolf and Achilleos handle it is so beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, it was one of the best. It was one of my favorite casts of this.
It's one of my favorite casts I've seen, at least this year.
Uh-huh.
I just want to see if I can find it real quick, because this is definitely a wonderful reference point and something I would highly recommend. Even if you saw the broadcast, go back and watch it from a caster's standpoint.
That's one of the hardest things for me to do is to watch it as a fan and not have the caster mentality going on.
Well, and there's a lot of it was against Seoul.
It was Seoul.
It was Seoul.
When Seoul was actually doing relatively decent, they weren't in the crapper.
No, this is the one I'm thinking of. This is the back and forth. This went 1-1 to 1-1 to 1. That's not the one I'm thinking of.
Spacey seems to think it was Nixel.
I was thinking it was Nixel too. Yes, it was. It was in YXL the week before. Okay. So they beat Seoul in a 5-map series in week 25. In week 24 is the reverse sweep against YXL. It was.
Yeah.
I highly recommend going back and watching that broadcast. I mean, and again, from a caster's point of view, and looking at the story points and the emotion that Wolf is bringing to this in particular. And how it all pans out. It's such a beautiful example of storytelling and their personalities coming through, the analytical personality coming through, but still maintaining that emotional tie, still giving it the genuine feeling that has to be there. And I think that goes with whatever your personality is, it needs to be genuine. And I think that's the bottom line on that.
And now answer me this, because we've gone back and listened to stuff from us like at the beginning of CGL when we first started casting together, and to where we're at now. We still sound the same. but we've obviously gotten better at our craft, and we're still working very hard. And that's the other thing, everybody out there, is that we're still works in progress. Nowhere near where we want to be,
Oh yeah, absolutely.
but
No, we're all here to learn
yeah,
together. No, no, no. I'm
yeah,
not professing to be a master of this by any
no,
means. In fact, I'm in the works of trying to get people involved that are better than this, better at this than I am. That might be able to provide more expert opinion. But we're in episode 1. Let's get a few episodes in, my friends, and then we'll
yeah.
see if we can get some more elite casters in here. But
But I think that the one thing that you have to be, that you can't get around, is you can't be fake. That
yes,
is one thing that and that's something I have to address to everybody. I tried to be something that I'm not. I tried to be this super goofy, off the wall character my first cast, and I mean, even though my personality was there, it wasn't me, and I kind of got called out on it, and I still remember that to this day. Is they're like, dude, that's not you. That's like some kind of like put on image. That's not who you are, and that's where the statement, who are you, comes back. You have to be 100% authentic, even if you're putting on a little bit of production or theatrics just to make the cast a little bit more spicy.
no, we're here to be entertaining.
Yeah,
Like you're still in front of a camera. You're still on stage, essentially.
yep.
Um, so and that's where it becomes difficult. I find it was almost easier to be yourself at first, but then once you start applying all of the rules of casting and trying to get technically proficient at casting, it becomes more difficult to meld in that style and personality while being 100% genuine and being 100% on top of all the technique.
I mean,
But
all the work that
authenticity
I
is
would.
the most important part of that, for sure. You can't be
Mhm.
fake.
I think that's why you got around so long, huh? Okay. I'm gonna have to mute for a minute because there's gonna be a loud noise here in my house for a minute. So,
Oh, no
I, I
problem.
think I think that being authentic. I'll listen to you for a minute. But I think being authentic. I lost myself for a little while. When Boop gave me all those things to work on, I had to sacrifice my personality um, in order to get the technicality down.
Correct.
And once I got the technicality down, then I could reintroduce me back into that. And
It's
so
so
that's why
true.
I disappeared for a little. I had to disappear for a little while. And you guys will go through stages and changes, just like the peaks and valley of a story of a cast. Your own personal transition, you will get discouraged at times. You will get upset at yourself sometimes. You will think that you're never going to cast another game well in your life. And then if you stick to it and you really listen to what is being told to you, because honestly, the people that are helping us want us to be successful. If you listen and you apply it, great things are going to happen for you. And that's what's happening for us. And I'm going to mute for a few minutes so we can get some whipped potatoes done.
Not a problem. I'm gonna go grab a fresh Red Bull. Let's take 2 minutes, rehydrate, and we'll continue. We're gonna move on to story point number 3, which is speaking with intent. When we return. All right, I'm back. Okay. So we've talked about storytelling, going from general to specific. We've talked about some good storytelling elements. We talked about personality, being yourself, and what is uniquely you are extremely important to any broadcast. And finding your style, be it more analytical style or more of an emotionally driven style. There's no wrong style, but it's important to find your style. Our third talking point today will be speaking with intent, and this is a very important one, and I think this covers a broad range of topics. But speaking with intent is a having confidence in what you're saying. It's gonna be natural, but if there's intent behind it, not kind of middle of the fence, but have opinions, have strong opinions, and don't be afraid to voice those opinions during a broadcast. And you don't. It's not about being even 100% accurate. Now, I mean, knowledge is extremely important, and we'll get onto that topic a little bit later on. But speaking with intent is just having authority in what you're saying, and then the confidence comes across, and that authority is there. Now, one thing that what we need to work on for today's class is being more succinct. And that's extremely important across the board. Making sure that the points that you're focusing on are driving that story forward. And a lot of this comes to preparation. Getting with your co-caster before the match. This is also part of synergy, which will be our next story point. But that preparation, it fuels the confidence. Then you know you've put in the practice and the work beforehand, and you just go out there and execute what you've been practicing, execute what you talked about, stay on those points, and find the fun and critical elements that all reinforce that just help build that story. But it's being succinct about it and sticking with a purpose. I in doing some in preparation for today's class, I was rereading up on some old articles that I've read a couple times, but it's been a few months. A lot of them from Broadcast GG. This is probably a good time to say join my Discord, because I will start compiling these resources, and they will be there for y'all to look at your leisure. But one of the things they talk about was an interview with Bupasaurus, one of my mentors, and one of his former casting partners, Ham Tornado. And Tornado was talking about that one of the early mistakes in casting, actually it may have been Boop, now that I'm thinking about it, is... No, it was Ham Tornado. And I was thinking of it more from a play-by-play standpoint, and she was the color caster, but still. One of the most important aspects, one of the most early mistakes, is just getting caught what Boop would call listing. And it's not picking out the important elements. That you've got to stay with the important elements of the cast. Part of it is the example I brought up is a good example of this. Where if you have 12 ultimates online, which ones are the important ones to be keeping an eye on? Which ones are going to be the most impactful ultimates? And this could be kind of subjective to your storyline. So, I mean, if you're hyping an Ana player, that's been a big difference throughout the whole thing. You really want to make sure and reinforce the supports. Supports don't get forgotten. I always appreciate your supports. But you've got just this amazing Ana player that has been having high value, high impact all series long. That nano and where they choose to put the nano can turn the tide. And despite the fact that there are 11 other ultimates in the game that are all about to go off, or at least half of them are about to go off, that you're keeping a sharp eye on this one, and this is why. And anything else, you're just adding noise to the feed. If you start talking about the Graviton Surge or the Dragons or the Nano Blade or even the Blade itself, once you start adding the Nano onto it, that's a little bit different. But you can risk just adding noise to the story that doesn't need to be there. I mean, it's essentially just filler, and it doesn't add any real meat or gravity to the situation.
Cut the fluff. That's what I was told.
Yeah, cut the fluff.
Cut the fluff, get to your point, make your point, and then move on to the next topic. That just really goes along with your succinctness. Uh, that's was one of my biggest things too. Is that I took forever to get to a point, and I would bleed into your time. That was something that was told to me by uh, multiple reviewers
Yeah.
for me. Is that I would bleed into your time because I didn't spit out what I was trying to say. I was trying to fill too much, throw all my knowledge out there to make it seem like I was on top of everything, and uh, rather than just beelining to the point and getting it back to the play by play.
Yeah, it's so true.
So true.
Eliminate the fluff. And that's determined by what story it is you're telling. And this is where that prep comes in. Another good way to speak with intent throughout your entire cast is to acknowledge and eliminate your crutch words. Once you eliminate, everybody has them. All casters have words that you fall back on that are really just filler. And eliminating these is almost, I mean, really acknowledging them, I think, is most important. Eliminating them is important, but acknowledging you have them kind of naturally leads to you avoiding them. And then when you're speaking, you're not falling back on anything. You're staying in the moment. You're staying with the proper storytelling elements, and it makes the whole thing more succinct.
Indeed, on the side of.
On the side of
Yeah.
here, here is become one I'm trying to eliminate. I mean, personally, like nevertheless was one for a while, where I just kind of got stuck in the rut of using that word. And I was like, yeah, no, let's just get rid of that. Let's just break away from
You
that.
actually used it really well, though. Like I was so happy that you actually used it the right way. Mine lately has been uh in this instance. It's a new one that's popped up.
And that happens. That's a very good point because once you start eliminating mistakes, you'll see new ones pop up, but that's a good sign. I mean, it means you're just whittling them down. It reminds me of doing art and animation. You eliminate 20 mistakes and then you notice 10 more because you got rid of the most glaring mistakes, and now you're starting to realize more smaller mistakes and more detailed mistakes. The same thing applies to casting.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's never going to be perfect. And that's something you also have to allow yourself to understand is that it's never going to be perfect. But being as close to perfect for you personally as you can get, I think, is a strive for every cast you should do. And Bull Skunk and I are very hard on ourselves as far as knowing when we had a good cast or when we had some opportunities to do better. And we are absolutely our
Well,
own worst critics.
I think it's important to be critical. Uh, you don't want to be too hard on yourself. You don't want to beat yourself up over mistakes because mistakes are going to happen.
We've never done that, Bull Skunk.
No, never.
No, never.
Mistakes are going to happen, but eliminating some of your crutch words will help minimize those mistakes right out of the gate,
Mm-hmm.
and it will help speaking with intent. It'll help proficiency and your overall cast.
And it helps with the flow of the story too, because you don't have all that extra filler that you're having to digest while you're watching the game too.
Correct.
I thought about this,
Yes, it's
getting
easier
rid
to
of
understand,
yeah,
and that's
it
the whole
actually
point.
it's less words to have to interpret in the middle of a cast, and I really did. Once I realized that I had so many fillers going in there, I started cutting down on it. In the EBC, the last weekend that I cast before I got sick, I thought Spacey and I had a fantastic cast. I mean, my filler words really went down. Like, I used to put a lot of fluff in there, you know that, and
Yeah.
now I'm a lot more streamlined, and I think that it helps, with the flow of the cast because your co-casters not having to try and digest every single word that you said and pay attention to the game. They can just listen to your blurb, get on with it, and move. And that's it.
Which leads us to our next talking point, which is synergy. And there's a couple things that go into synergy. First off, the first note I put on that is it's going to take time. Anytime you're working with a new caster, the more you work together, the better you'll work together. I mean, just common sense. It's ever more true in casting as is important in anything else because it's just the two of you. The two of you up there with everything on the line out there for the world to see. And that synergy helps elevate you both. And you can kind of not cover each other's mistakes, but you encourage each other to not make those mistakes. I think when you develop good synergy. So I'd say having that synergy is super important. So with that said, how can we help progress that along quicker? Well, I mean, the first thing that comes to mind for me is preparation.
Yes. I mean, let's take us for example. I would go speak to all the captains whenever we had a game set up. This is, of course, if it's possible to get a hold of them. But I think that we would talk about what we were looking for in this match, what their records were. It can be as simple as that, as just going over their records.
And one thing that we would do is Billy and I would kind of divide our attack, where it's like, okay, Billy, you go talk to one captain and I'll go talk to the other and we'll compare notes. Or, you talk to both captains and I'll review VODs and go over match history. And so we can bring these things to the table. And it can be even something more detailed than that, to where you're talking about, okay, I'm going to handle the intro and then I'll say, well, I'll introduce the teams and you pick up from there and you can discuss how you're going to handle these situations. A personal example is one thing I struggled with, especially early, that I'm still continuing to work on, is not knowing when to throw when it's a very long, drawn out team fight, and you feel like the fight is just going to go on forever. A lot of times, this is in a stall situation when capturing an objective or an overtime. And it was, as a play-by-play, I felt like it was important just to keep the play was still happening, so I was supposed to just keep talking, right? Well, no, not usually. And so, Billy and I sat down and was like, okay, here's the things that I'm going to look for. If the stall is going on and then you see the Lucio come in with beat, it throws beat, that's an easy opportunity for me to throw for even just a sentence or two to help break up the flow a little bit, throw that extra voice in there, throw that extra personality in there, and then you come back in, and then as play-by-play, that helps you to have more impact. And that's a difficult play-by-play situation, and it varies from fight to fight. It can be something as simple as the tank returning to the fight. And you realize at that point, okay, this fight's going to draw out for at least a few more seconds. There's room for my color caster to interject an important point. And it can be literally one sentence, as the Rhine is returning with shatter. This shatter could be huge. And that's all it takes. And then the play-by-play comes back in with what happened. The shatter got blocked. The shatter got 3. The Rhine got decimated. Wasn't even able to use it. But then it becomes a story element into that important fight. And that was just something that we had to converse about, that prior, after acknowledging it was a mistake, and then prior to the match going forward, Billy and I sat down and just had a conversation about it and was like, I'll be looking for these elements. I'll be looking for these tank elements. This could be a good time to throw if we get in a big drawn out battle. That kind of preparation really helps build your synergy a lot faster than just flying by the seat of your pants every time and hoping you figure it out. If you sit there and analyze it and discuss it beforehand, then you're looking for it. Don't worry about you now. Don't worry about being late. I'm glad you're here. Glad you stopped by.
Yeah, hi NSB. Hi Henri One too. I saw him slip in here.
Yeah, indeed.
I think that for us, the biggest part of our synergy and the best part of our cast, our best casts are always the ones that we take the time beforehand to discuss the teams, discuss what we want to do. And this goes for all you casters out there that are watching this right now. You have to allow yourself preparation time. You can't just load into your game, get into a party with your co-caster and go. You have to have some time to set up
I mean,
and
I
in your
typically leave a
setup.
2 hour window.
Yeah, I mean, you and I have done we've done night before. Sometimes if it's going to be an earlier cast.
Oh, sure, sure.
Um,
For a finals match, I
yeah,
mean, you can, for a couple days, you could be reviewing VODs
yeah.
and trying to go through, write down tendencies, personalities, strong points, weak points. But it's that preparation together. And it, on that note, I mean, doing post match reviews is really good as well. One thing that's been suggested to me is go back after a cast with your color caster and just sit for 15 minutes and talk about 3 things you thought you did well during that broadcast and 3 things that you thought you could have improved on or done better during that broadcast, and do that after every broadcast. And having that post match meeting, it just kind of realigns your focus. And so when you're coming back in next time, you can look back and go, oh, we did this thing well. So we want to make sure we keep doing that and find more ways to do that, and keep elevating this story element that we brought in. Which that was really cool. Let's do that again. And then another point where it's like, yeah, maybe our transitions were a little rough that game. How could we improve our transitions or reset our timing? I've talked about soft and hard resets in casting just like you do when playing. And that goes back to your timing, which is all part of this synergy.
I mean, we actually did that a lot when we were in the CGL.
Yes.
After we got done with the cast,
Yes.
whether it be 2 or 3 a night. After the last match, we take a minute to go show love to our significant other. We get a cocktail and then we talk about what we did. I think that really helped us build our synergy a lot faster. As we would dissect a little bit of what we did well, what we wanted to work on for the next time, and just realizing that we actually did that a lot. We did that after every cast, I think.
Pretty much, yeah.
So I mean, just giving the honest feedback, and that's the other big thing: is be honest with your co-caster.
And that
Doesn't mean
just
you
comes
have
with
to
time too, right?
yeah, yeah. I mean, you don't. I mean, just be honest. I mean, honesty costs $0, and
Yeah, it goes a long way. Being genuine.
goes along with being genuine. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, Jeff and I don't think we've ever been really mad at each other.
No.
I don't know. I think we've been frustrated either with a situation or maybe with how a lobby was set up or how captains acted during a match. I don't think we've ever been upset at each other. We've been frustrated the way a cast has gone sometimes. Like we both know we made some boneheaded calls and we're just
No,
like, "Ah."
it's just like playing. Some games are better than others. Sometimes you have an off day, and you're like, that I just never found my rhythm today. It was just an off day, and that happens. That happens to everybody, all the way up the board. So
I think of us like a doubles tennis team. Sometimes a person gets a really good shot, the other person gets another good shot, but you want to move in tandem as best you can and support each other whenever you're not in the spotlight. And I mean, I think we've done that very well so far. I try to.
and I mean, back to the original point. It's just that communication both before and after a match is really important, and
Really
can help
is.
build that synergy. And with that, I mean, I always say casters live and die on transitions, and I think that's a big part of it as well. And making sure your transitions are sound and very clean. You don't want to pick up a transition with yeah or even I agree. I mean, it's going to happen from time to time, but that goes that's a bit of a crutch, and then it goes back to those crutch words. Transition should be smooth, almost one thought line, perhaps bouncing back and forth across a point, but I think a beautiful transition. Let's go back to the Ryan example. And Ryan's coming back with shatter, and then the play-by-play immediately picks it up with looking for that shatter, and the shatter is huge. I mean, to where it just fed right in. There wasn't like it could be huge. Oh, and it looks like it was. So I think that would be an example of a bit poorer transition, where it creates this stutter to it. There's not a fluency between the two casters carrying the story along. And mean, live and die in transitions. Working on those transitions is a big part of building that synergy.
Yep. And that's something that we in the beginning had some struggles with, and we just sat down and really ironed out how we wanted, even from the from going from cameras to in game. We had it mapped out how we were going to do things.
Right.
And I think that's the biggest thing.
Yeah, that's part of the producing yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, now we even have it, even in Elo Hell and above, we still have that, uh, the 30-second thing is apparently is an industry wide thing. We thought we were so clever at the 30 seconds. Choose your hero, whatever, pick your hero.
Yeah. No, it's pretty standard.
Pretty standard. So
it just makes a really good spot.
It's a great spot.
Yeah.
Prepare
for battle. Boom. Go in game. We're prepared for battle.
And it is transitions. And
yeah.
The familiarity that you have with your co-caster, the stronger the bond gets. And you guys should be friends. I mean, I hate to say it, but a friendship that comes out of casting will come across on the screen. And, Jeff or Scott, you know how fond of you I am. We are very good friends, so I think that honestly comes across in our comms and in our casting.
Sure.
I mean, it can't not come across in.
Yeah, that's casting. Just part of the personality.
Yep.
And then your personality as a duo.
Yeah. Chef Skunk or Skunky Chef or whatever. I don't know. Skunky Chef. There we go. That's the bro name, the bromance name.
Bull and Billy.
Bull and Billy. I do like that. We should make that. A t-shirt.
No.
Stop making me laugh. It hurts to laugh. It really does.
All right. So moving on. So we've talked about 4 of what I consider the most important aspects of casting Overwatch so far. We've talked about storytelling, personality, speaking with intent, and then synergy. So on to our final talking point for the day is knowledge. And I mean, this is a pretty important one. Chef Bully. Yeah. It's not bad. It's not bad.
It's not leg day though, or lemon day.
Lemon day.
I mean, that would what flows off the tongue.
Lemon day is so good. It's so good.
Lemon day.
Yeah. Boop NATO was always a good one.
NATO, yes.
Yep.
Okay.
But so knowledge. This is a crucial one, and I think it's something that it's easy to think that you have to be the smartest person in the room to cast, and that's not necessarily true. You're not there to prove anything to anybody, but you need to have an understanding as to what the meta is and why the meta is what it is, and this will lead to why picks are happening within compositions, what the order of operation is within those compositions, and it helps you a lot. It helps you a lot in your cast to where you can give predictions on what to look out for, what's going to happen, where a fight's going to break out, which helps lead to your own internal timing as a cast. If you know, one that came up recently is Junkertown. Most often, you're not going to get the first real fight on Junkertown until the cart hits that final quarter of point A, heading into the big open space. That is typically where the first real fight breaks out. And knowing this, not only do you prepare your viewers for this, but you adjust the timing of your cast, of your transitions within that opening 30 to 45 seconds accordingly. Because you have that room to talk about the compositions. Yeah, sure, an early pick might happen, and it could be very exciting. It could help open up the defense before they even get a chance to plant their feet. But generally speaking, you have that opening, we'll say 30 seconds at least, to build the stakes, to talk about the composition, and as a play-by-play to give your color a little room to work. But they also need to have, if they share that same knowledge, when once those shields clash around that last corner of point A, that it's play-by-play time. It's go time. And that's when the fight's really going to break out. And it can help balance out the entire flow of the cast. So knowledge goes beyond just knowing cooldown specifics or knowing exactly how much damage a sleep dart does, which is 5, by the way. It's so hilarious when you see a sleep dart kill. It means they have less than 5 freaking health. Anyway, see, and that can be funny. That can be good. But the knowledge is more than that. It's the understanding why things are happening and why things are working or not working. And that's just game knowledge.
Yep. And I tell, especially from the color side, and this goes out to all you colors out there listening, do your research. Look at VODs from many different sources.
That's it.
Listen
Applies to
to
any
what.
caster.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't know, and that's something that I did not do until I got hooked up with Volskunk here. About once Labasco said you need to be watching VOD reviews almost every day, at least one.
Yeah.
And then the second one was watching coaches explaining why their teams are doing what they're doing, like Natter and Dreamer.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's a really good one.
Watching the Houston Outlaws coach versus who was it? Christopher. Christopher explaining why they did what they did against the Houston Outlaws. That was one of the best VOD reviews I've ever had, or that I've ever watched, because they were explaining what the mindset was, why EQO was doing what EQO did.
Yeah.
So, and the reasoning why he took the position, why he did a double blink from this area.
And that's I like Jake's a lot as well.
Jake is so good.
Jake, being a former player, does some really good microplay VOD reviews. Recently has done, his VOD review series is amazing. And it just gives great insight as to why the players make these little decisions and what separates the elite from the really good. And anybody at that level is a way better player than I am. But what makes Sparkle such a world-class Genji? And once you start seeing those things, Jake's stuff is so good. Once you start seeing those things, it just helps your cast. Then you're looking for the micro plays within the stuff that you're casting. And you can just get a better understanding for each of the individual heroes. So, all those kind of resources are amazing. And worth doing all the time. Just watching contenders. I spent the majority of my day-to-day just watching EU contenders. There's NA contenders going on now. Will not hurt my feelings if you want to go over and support Tier 2.
Did Young and Beautiful beat Avoided?
No, they did not.
I know that they lost Junkertown, and I actually passed out.
They chose that match. Young and Beautiful had first pick.
I know.
And picked Avoided out of the gate. And Avoided stomped them.
I'm Special was the new signing on the Zarya.
Yeah, he was signed today or yesterday.
Yesterday when they did the seeding show, and he actually talked smack to Young and Beautiful, to Kashorus.
Yeah. I watched all that.
I was rooting for them.
Yeah,
I like Hempy.
I love that whole team. I've had the pleasure of casting Avoided a few times now, both the NA and the EU variations of their squad, and man, are they fun to cast. That's I just root for Avoided every step of the way now. when I'm not casting. When I'm casting, obviously you're non-biased and you're there to tell the story. But behind the scenes, I'm like, go Avoided, break the meta. Show us all how much we don't know about this game.
Right. It's crazy how good they are.
And 10 out of 10 segue back to knowledge. That kind of thing it expands your outlook on the game. And it can break the cycle of what you thought you knew. and because it's such an organic thing, it's an ever-changing game. That staying on top, I mean, Contenders is probably the most experimental tournament within any region. It doesn't matter which region you're watching. Well, welcome back, Disra. Sorry, your tryout got canceled. But the experimentation in Contenders is amazing because the talent is there and they're willing to be creative and take changes and kind of shake things up a bit. And that was what was the match? I cast Avoided versus the I don't know team, AKK.
Oh, kind of Anhung. Yeah,
Yes, AKA. Yes.
yeah.
And I cast that one with LaFawn, which was an amazing experience. I mean, experienced veteran caster who's, I mean, just as polished as could be. It was such a joy. But he straight up asked me, "What was your takeaway from this?" My takeaway was, in not so many words, we don't have it all figured out yet. That there are different styles to playing this game that we think we've got it all mastered, and then something like that comes along and shows you an entirely different way to play Overwatch. And that's fascinating to me. And staying on top of that is so important. It's so important for your understanding of the game and being able to tell proper stories. Because at the end of the day, you don't always have to be right. It's more important to speak with intent, which was our third topic, than it is to be 100% accurate. You can backtrack and go, man, that did not happen at all how I thought it was going to happen, and this is why. You're still right, just that your expectations weren't. It didn't go exactly how you thought it was going to. I lost my words there for a second.
The ability to backtrack and walk it back and then make yourself still seem like you had it right the whole time is the hallmark of a great color caster or play-by-play caster.
Right.
I've learned really well how to do that at certain points because sometimes I just make a boneheaded, I got that completely wrong, where they debated me, and they ended up pushing with an offensive transcendence. And you would never expect to see that happening. But, I could walk it back. You can always walk it back.
Well, and it can also come down to, I mean, that was a high risk play. Not many people would have done that because they would have wanted to save Transcendence for the Gravitic Flux or whatever the case may be. But that aggressive Transcendence caught the defense off guard as well, and they got stormed over and never even had a chance to use the Flux. So, I mean, you can spin it in a way where it broke expectations because. But, I mean, without the knowledge, none of that will apply.
Right.
Now,
right.
Shifting away from game knowledge and metas a bit, which is obviously very important, but team knowledge as well. And Billy, you're always very good at this. And this goes back to where we started reaching out to captains, reaching out to players and coaches, managers, whoever would talk to us. But team knowledge can be just as important, if not more so, than game knowledge.
Yeah, this was my baby when we were doing our prep. I would reach out to the captains or the person of contact, depending on which area you're in. I would ask, basic questions. I would ask, what's your record? Just because I want to hear from them, especially how scuffed the seating or the tables were in the CGL.
To verify that it was accurate.
What their previous week's result was. Then I would ask, who are the star players or which roles should we really keep an eye out on? And then my last question to them would always be, how did your team form?
Yeah.
I wanted to know a little something about them that I could talk about or that Skunk could talk about to make it so that the players seemed a little bit more real on the screen, especially during the time of COVID that we were going through. I really wanted to bring more humanity to our casts.
And to the players.
And to the players.
Yeah, this goes back to storytelling.
So, yeah. So, I mean, sometimes I would have, huge discussions with them. Sometimes I'd get, 2-word responses. And you go with what they give you.
Yeah.
And the scouting that I did ahead of time really set us up for some really great casting.
Yeah, you built some wonderful storylines that way, for sure.
Yeah. It was a lot of fun. It was one of the most endearing parts of doing all the casts that we did, was getting to know the community just a little bit more, and seeing the messages that I got on Twitter, um, really, it still boggles me how many people actually like what I do, like what we do. It still boggles my mind, Bisco.
It's very
It
encouraging.
does. It's
But
very encouraging.
uh, learning about your teams, like I said, that's what really enables you to tell the story. The learning about the game will enable to tell you why the microplays are happening, or why a composition was picked or not picked. But learning the teams really brings the who. And without characters, the story is meaningless. And the characters are the people behind the screen. And so learning as much as you can there. I mean, and that goes down to, I mean, that's VOD reviews play a big part in that. And you don't have to have even any personal interaction. Sometimes you don't get responses, or you're not able to contact a captain or manager or whatnot. But you can look at their records, look at their past several games, look at their past month of games or week of games, depends on how many games are being played, what kind of format you have. But you can see trends, and just learning that trend alone of, man, it started off rough, but they've won their last two. Can they keep the uptick going? I mean, even that in of itself gives personality and identity to a team. So that's the team knowledge is super important.
And it builds the drama. It builds the drama. It builds the suspense. It builds the tension of the cast.
Yeah, you're telling the story.
That Yeah, you're telling the story, and that's what it is. At the end of the day, you're just telling the story of the game you love. And I think that's the one thing that you and I think that we have over a lot of people is that we really convey our passion for the game in our casting. I can give myself a little back pat on that one.
I mean, it's
I love
all in an
Overwatch.
effort to try to tell a better story. I mean, that's what we're all here to do. It's what it's all about. So, I mean, anything we can do to make that more engaging and bring to light the really awesome aspects of the humanity, as you put it, going into these matches, it all just tells a better story. Well,
I love doing it.
we're at right about 90 minutes. So we'll probably go ahead and wrap this one up a little short today. I just wanted to give an introduction here to the caster class. I will be doing these every Monday at 7 Eastern. You know, we'll have a lot of things in store. We may do some practice casts to some clean feeds. We'll have some VOD reviews. I mean, I'll do a self VOD review if need be. There's no qualms in doing that. Y'all can help me figure out how I can become a better caster. Maybe I can do the same and return the favor. We'll look at highlight reels. Perhaps, even go back and watch some of our favorite casts and what we did and didn't like about them. I have a lot of ideas for this thing, but I want to get the first episode off the ground. Just kind of introduce everybody to what we want to do here. Go over some of the basics that I think are super important elements of casting, and we might break these down into further detail as the weeks come. But I think we're about done for today. I appreciate y'all hanging out with us, even if you're no longer with us. Thank you, everybody, for stopping by, saying hello, showing support. It means the world. Billy, thank you for being here today. Yes, I am planning to do caster VOD reviews. There is there is a channel in the Discord where I believe all it allows is for you to post links. So just post a link there and be happy to do a VOD review on stream. I mean, it's all about getting better. And I mean, I appreciate it, because just even helping review other people's casts, I mean, it makes us all better casters. It improves everyone. So I'd appreciate some VODs to review. I think it's good for the whole community.
Yeah. I'm going to throw mine from that last weekend that I casted in there.
Yeah. I think next week, we'll start doing some VOD reviews. I may do one of mine from Trials. I would love to kind of go back and take a look at that with fresh eyes as well.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right, my friends. Well, we'll see you next week here on the Caster Class. Thank you very much. Y'all have a good night.
Night night.